Hey y'all, I'm Brad of Brave the Woods. As most of you already know, Adobe just came out with its new super hyped painting app called Adobe Fresco for the iPad Pro. For a while it was being called Project Gemini, and it's clearly an app to rival Procreate, which is actually pretty awesome because it's only going to make Procreate better and other apps like it better. But can Adobe Fresco really hold its own against Procreate? Let me give you some quick hip-fire reactions. Alright, y'all know how much I love Procreate. It's really the main reason why I own an iPad Pro, or actually still use my iPad Pro. Because before I was just trying to use Adobe's apps like Adobe Draw and Adobe Sketch, and I really didn't like them. So Procreate came along and made it possible for me to finish actual professional projects all just within that app. All this to say, I'm going to try and stay unbiased here as I show you some features from Fresco and talk about how it stacks up against Procreate. And it isn't exactly apples to apples here because, for example, Fresco has vector brushes that Procreate doesn't plan on ever getting into. And Procreate has this whole animation deal that Fresco doesn't look like it's interested in, so let's jump right into it. Most of the hype around Fresco is about its live brushes, and honestly, I was really excited for it too. They looked really cool when they did the demonstrations of them, but I didn't know that they were also incorporating vector brushes, which is awesome. So there's actually 3 types of brushes that are used in Fresco, and so let me show you what those are. The first type of brush is the pixel brush, which is your standard brush, but what's really cool is that they've incorporated a lot of great default brushes in here thanks to Kyle Webster, who I used to buy all of his brushes before he worked for Adobe, and always loved the quality of them. So I was really happy to see those in here, and I know that these are going to be good brushes because I know Kyle's work. And like these crazy cool cross hatches, you have some really neat halftones. So you have different sections. This is the comic section, which is cool. You have some for lettering. You have some cool markers. But yeah, I trust all these brushes are going to be really nice if Kyle made them. The other cool thing about Fresco is that they allow you to import your Photoshop brushes. So that's your .tpl or .abr files. So I actually did that on one of mine already. I have a couple of different Photoshop packs that I uploaded into here. I'm not sure why it made it twice on here. For example, like my Space Ranger form, and they look identical. It's an Adobe product, which is awesome. And that's super nice because Procreate doesn't have that yet. They will in the new Procreate 5 update. You'll be able to import your Photoshop brushes, which is really neat. But for now, that's a really cool perk to have. One thing I noticed in here that's kind of weird though is I have to kind of put a little more pressure on here to make a mark than I'm used to. You have to press kind of hard to make your mark show up. For example, if I'm just going to hold it like this, no pressure added, right? There's no mark. Whereas if I was going into Procreate and I did that same test, it makes the mark. So I'm not sure if there's a setting I need to change in there, or I don't know why you'd have to press so hard on there. But it's a little frustrating because it's not as smooth, and I'm trying to get used to that adjustment. But I'm not sure what that's about. It's the second type of brush that I'm really excited about, the live brushes. Now, again, I said they've hyped this up quite a bit, so I really want to try it out and see how it works. So this is the watercolors brush. It's a watercolor wash. Oh my goodness, that's super cool. You can see how it just continues to bleed in there, just like if you were to do wet on wet with watercolor. You can see how those colors start to blend together, the paint starts blending together. I'll do it with multiple colors so we can really see. So I put some more paint in there. You'll see it kind of growing and bleeding into those areas. You can also adjust that. So down here you have your flow, and you can make that, bleed less or more depending on what you would like. Then you also have your oils, which again, these ones look pretty cool. Oil paint chunky. That sounds promising. Let's do this. Up the size. Oh wow, yeah, you can totally see that. Hopefully you can see it as well, but you can see the ridges and the paint building up and moving paint around. Let's do a different color here to really see it. You can see, and it mixes it really nice. So if I'm lightly touching on there, it's kind of barely mixing into there. That feels very realistic. I'm super impressed with that. Not sure how often I'll use it. Maybe I'll try to use it more. I guess in my typical work, but I can definitely play around with this, and that could be kind of fun. And the last brush is your vector brush, which is really cool. It doesn't have a lot of options. Let's test it out here. Nice crisp vector lines. But what's really neat about it, if you look over here on the layers panel, it gives you a little icon here that shows that it's a vector. So that little circle, filled in circle, that means it's a vector layer. So it separates your other ones. So if I want to start let's say I'm going to start drawing with this pixel brush. If I started drawing with that pixel brush, it's not going to let me draw it on this layer. It's going to create its own, and you'll see that little icon next to it saying that it's a pixel brush. It keeps them all separate for you, which is actually really, really nice when you export it, and then you can change those vector ones to raster images if you'd like at some point. Now, Fresco's interface is busier by default than Procreate's. You can tell just by all the stuff in the sidebars. Great to have all those tools, but you also want to leave as much real estate as possible to paint on since you have such a small surface. So, for example, if I was to go back to Procreate, you'll see that everything is hidden. All those things that are in the way are pretty hidden, and you have to kind of go look for them, which honestly, it does take a little bit of a learning curve for Procreate to find those different things or know that they exist. But it's nice just that it's all out of the way and clean. And then I realized in the top right hand corner, I could take all that stuff away while I'm working, which is awesome. And if I go back, I can take like my colors right over here and adjustments, and then I can have those show up. The things that I'd like to have, I can take them out of the dock, and then I can also redock them when I'm done with them, which is actually a really cool feature. Being able to drag out your color picker is something that's really cool here for Fresco, but Procreate 5, when that comes out, it'll also allow you to do that. So just a heads up there. Now I'm going to add an asterisk next to this next comment because I haven't spent as much time in Fresco as I have in Procreate, obviously, because it just came out. But overall, so far, Procreate just seems to be a little bit more intuitive. And I'll give you an example of that. I feel like Fresco has lots of these really cool options and functions, but I feel like I'm still scrolling through lists for things that that should be a little bit more accessible. So for example, if I'm going to try to delete a layer, if I tap on it, you either have to double tap or you can go over here and tap on that. But if I'll double tap on there, I have to go, there's a whole bunch of things, but it's not immediately apparent that delete layers right here. So then I go to delete that layer, right? But if I was in Procreate, if I wanted to delete a layer, let's say I'm going to delete this layer, all I have to do is slide it and it's a big red button that says delete. I know this sounds like something like, oh, well, it still exists and why do you have to have that big red button? You don't. But just overall, the things that are super handy, all I have to do is swipe for. I don't have to go and look down a list. So it's just, and it's big and red, so I know, oh yeah, that's the delete button. It's just fractions of a second, but it makes the whole experience so much smoother. But if you use Adobe desktop programs like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, all those types of things, you'll probably have a leg up on how to navigate this. And I'm not sure if you've never opened those types of programs, if this would even be harder to navigate. But I'm curious what y'all think. Is Fresco's UI pretty intuitive for you? Leave that in the comment below, because I'm actually very curious if it's maybe just me, because I've also been used and exposed to Adobe products. All right, let's talk about the prices. The price of Fresco is $9.99 a month. A month without a subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud plan. So if you don't have that subscription, this will cost you $9.99 a month. That's outrageous. I would never pay that. I already have the subscription plan because I use all the different programs that they have. I didn't have to pay for Fresco because I already have the Creative Cloud plan. I pay $52.99 a month to have access to their entire collection of desktop and mobile apps like Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe XD, Premiere, all the things that I use. I have access to those and all the updates are unlimited. So it's worth it to me because I already pay into that. If you don't have this subscription plan, I would never pay $9.99 a month to access Fresco when you have Procreate. Procreate only costs you $9.99 once, and then you have all the updates you want. There's no reason to buy Fresco if you don't have Adobe Creative Cloud plan. In my own opinion, I would never pay $9.99 a month just for that app. They definitely pulled ideas from Procreate, but honestly it was a smart move because I struggle with other painting apps that don't have things like just tapping 2 fingers to undo or 3 fingers to redo. That one drives me nuts when I don't have that, especially like just even working on my computer. The not having that kind of drives me crazy. The other thing they copied is the ability to export a time-lapse video of your drawing, which is really sweet actually. I love having that option in Procreate, and I was going to be upset if I wasn't going to be able to have it here because it helps me make a lot of these videos actually and records that without you even having to worry about setting something to record. So definitely helpful. They have the brush creator panel, so I can go and I can update the brushes, their shape dynamics, create my own brushes, just like in Procreate, where I have the ability to tap on there and adjust my brush and work on textures and all that fun stuff. So that's definitely mandatory now. There's also a couple things that I noticed that Fresco has that Procreate doesn't that I really like. Like for example, there's the quick export option, so you can share a snapshot of what you're working on at any point. It's just a nice quick little way I can just go and drop it right to my iMac and share a really quick JPEG of what I'm working on. It's great for sharing on social or sending to a client. It's just a really quick, just tap it and go. I really like that option. They also have this touch shortcut button, which I'm not sure you even saw the whole time, but it does the alternative actions of some of these tools. Really, the only one I care about at the moment that's really cool is just being able to change whatever brush you're using into an eraser brush. So for example, if I'm drawing with this blue brush right here, and then I hold this, it'll erase with that same brush. Now Procreate does this, it just does it differently. In Procreate, if you wanted to erase with the same brush that you're using, you just have to hold on to the eraser and then you're able to erase with it. But you have to keep changing it and you have to remember to do that for each brush that you're working with. That's why I like that little modifier button here at the bottom. That's really handy. I really want to sit down and play with Fresco a bit more since it only came out a few days ago. I'll definitely have to do a more thorough review in the future. But for now, after my initial reactions, I wouldn't say Fresco is better than Procreate. Adobe's definitely trying to stand on the shoulders of Procreate and what they've created, which is great, and I think that's a real giant leap in the right direction. It'll probably just turn into a situation where it's kind of like how I use Photoshop and Illustrator for different projects. It'll probably be the same situation here. When I want to use more vector brushes, I'm going to go into Adobe Fresco. If I want to work more animation or just my typical workflow with raster images, I might just stick in Procreate. But again, this is all really early hipfire reactions. And it doesn't mean that I'm writing off Fresco. I think Fresco looks like an awesome, powerful app. And it has abilities that Procreate doesn't even have yet or will never have. Also, have any of y'all tried out the Fresco app? I'm really curious to hear your reactions, so if you put those in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it helped give you at least a little bit more knowledge about the Fresco app, and if you were sitting on the fence trying to figure out if you wanted to buy it and you already had Procreate, or if you want to pick between the two, hopefully this gave you a little bit more information. Please remember to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe. We do this every single week. We'll see you next time.